What is the significance of the Red October campaign? And what is the state of communism 100 years after the Russian Revolution? Who is delaying the convening of an alliance summit? And why has the SACP waged a war against gender-based violence? What time is it? It's question time. Kotsong Rula Mraro, my name is Mpotse. Yesterday, the SACP launched the Red October campaign and the centennial commemorations of the Russian Revolution. The Bolshevik revolutionaries took power in Russia in October 1917 and proclaimed a new dawn for civilization. It was premised on the belief that the proletariat, particularly workers around the world, would be liberated from capitalist oppression. This, as detractors continue to question the relevance of communism in the modern world. The Red October launch comes in the wake of COSATU and the SACP's nationwide protest against corruption and state capture 2 weeks ago. Speaking at the event yesterday, SACP General Secretary Blade Nzimande called for an end to all forms of violence, including gender-based violence. For his part, COSATU President Stu Dlamini said the workers will fight labor brokers until the ANC takes a decision to ban them. We are live, and therefore you can call us and air your views on the number 089-110-4210 and our international number +27891104210. Our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. My guest today is Solima Paila. He's the first Deputy General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, and he joins me in studio today. Soli, welcome to the show, and we, as usual, appreciate you answering our calls.
Thank you.
The Red October month has been launched, and perhaps I want us to take this discussion, a little higher. Perhaps some may not even understand what is the significance of this and where does it come from. Perhaps let's start it there.
Well, from the SACP point of view is that we always remember the success of the 1917 Russian Revolution, but with the local content. So the significance of this for us is that we always highlight an issue that we mobilize all our structures and society to respond to effectively. We have had many Red Octobers, for instance, one which focused on the public health, which ultimately gave us the national health insurance at a campaign level. One also that focused on land, Maubuyo Mhlaba campaign, and many others, one on public education, one on social services. So we highlight that to indicate to government and all other role players for development in South Africa to respond, working with us in our communities to respond to the challenges that we face. And this year we felt that as a celebration of the centenary of the Russian Revolution, we should dedicate that centenary celebration to a war against women violence on abuse of women.
Okay, but you see, the Russian Revolution was a mass-based phenomenon, and indeed it was also class-based because they in essence wanted a political system which the workers would be in charge, they would run the economy and all that, which is a far cry from what South Africa is finding itself at.
Yes, that's why our focus of Red October campaigns is not necessarily a purely SACP program. That's why we mobilize different organizations to come together. You know, for instance, when we established the Financial Sector Campaigns Coalition, it was a consequence of the Red October campaign to fight against lack of transformation and diversification of the financial sector, where majority of black South Africans were excluded from an economy which is largely financialized. So even this campaign, we had a seminar a couple of weeks ago where we invited organizations that are working in the field of gender-based violence that fight against that, an organization that fights for equality between men and women, and also to fight for social relations, equal social relations between men and women. Those organizations, we pull them together into a seminar to discuss even the theme of this year's Red October campaign, and we'll continue to engage with them. We've called on our provinces to organize public events wherein they can invite all communities, irrespective of whether they are members of the Communist Party or not, anchoring this within the alliance movement so that we bring the mass capacity of the SACP and the outreach that we have across the country to mobilize society against women abuse.
Okay, let's go to Khayelitsha. Harrison is there. Harrison, welcome.
Welcome to Mamunjani.
Ndiphilile njani tata?
Khona man. Lamadoda e-SACP man mama yedwa ulahlekisa abantu. Lento yabo i-ANC ndondo zonke ezo zinto make bayeke abantu mabangaconfuse ngabo. So mabayeke lento yabo kuba bayi-ANC ne-SACP imene izofaka kunye zonke ezizontathu ngo-2019 uNosiko.
Okay, and goes that raising issues there, but like I said, I want us to lift this discussion a bit, because I'm saying in 2017 in South Africa, what is the state of a class struggle? Is the SACP still located at the center of this struggle?
Yeah, of course. We're at much at it. We have sharpened many contradictions in favor of the working class against the capitalist system. In fact, we assert that current social and production relations in society are the basis upon which unequal relations between men and women, that is power relations, exist. And therefore, that's on its own. It's a question of class struggle. That is why you can't resolve gender-based violence fully without launching a massive campaigns to transform production relations in society, of which at the moment they are anchored on a socialist, on a capitalist system. So therefore, the fight against capitalism, it's at the core of a fight for equality of our society. And therefore, that's part of the class struggle in that context. But if you do broad mass mobilization and elevate a matter of this nature, sometimes it becomes too divisive. That is why we have decided to make it so simple for communities to participate in the campaign by raising issues that are affecting them. If they discover later on that this is a class struggle, so be it. But at the core of it is that we want everybody to come and work with us to make sure that in our communities, through our Know and Act in Your Neighborhood campaign, which our cadres visit every household, they are able to identify the problems, and also at the street level.
If you had a socialist system here in South Africa, or let's say if South Africa was a Marxist state, you wouldn't be having this gender-based violence, because Marxism in its foundation, its fundamental principles, and some of its best adherents have been, both genders, both women and men, and it teaches the respect of both genders, and not to look at things from a gender perspective. I think you should rather, be fighting for a Marxist solution, yeah?
Of course, the whole fight is a Marxist solution, ultimately. But as I say, we are a communist party. Within the Communist Party, we elevate the ideological aspect of this campaign. But within society, we elevate the social aspect of this problem. Whether that social aspect is analyzed in class prism or in class form or not, it's something else. But I think that you are correct. For instance, if you go to countries like Cuba, there's better social relations between men and women, or power relations between men and women, as opposed to purely capitalist countries.
Okay. Jolly D.
Hi, Paul.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Soli, how do you explain to an ordinary person who is looking at the Communist Party as a party that needs to help South Africa in these trying times? How do you explain the theme being a war against women and children abuse, as opposed to a war against state capture, which is really the topical issue of the day. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, why?
Well, the first thing is that, firstly, we are a party that fights against all forms of exploitation and oppression. Therefore, that's an important opening. But to the extent that state capture exists within a capitalist production relations in society, it has created a runaway state. That is why the poor people, for instance, could not get services. I can give a classical example. We have taken action, for instance, about ESCOM, where we exposed the wrong contract deals between Tegeta, the Gupta Ogbe companies involved there through their company Tegeta, as well as the relationship between ESCOM increasing its prices to the consumer, whilst on the one hand, it is just hiving off huge resources to one group of people on the basis of political connection. So this is the interrelation between state capture of either the policy making in the state as well as state-owned enterprises, and how we as ordinary South Africans pay for the decision for the consequences of state capture that happens somewhere where we think we're not involved. So whether it's lack of services in particular communities, there's over 100 billion that is hived off outside the country, who could have been used to respond to those challenges in this country. So that's part of the interrelations between these two questions, the question that you raised.
Let's go to Wonder Park. Is it Peter?
Bo,
Welcome.
I must say that you are sitting with the real guerrilla.
Sit?
You're sitting with the real commander, the real guerrilla of the place.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but my question would be, I think that maybe even if Katmas would really agree that maybe if the world was communism, it would be correct to say that we're going to have stuck in the world. But isn't that maybe the world has moved on? The capitalist system, it has taken over the world. Maybe because now China, Shanghai, it has changed its approach of the global system. And now because of the threat of post-industrial, we see so many policies appearing. Now, what is the approach of the African Communist Party to deal with the post-industrial policy?
Okay.
So that those jobs that are disappeared, especially in furniture shops and all those other traditional of mobilized people, because I think that's what.
All right, Peter, thank you very much. Well, yes, the fourth industrial revolution. Here we are, 2017. We are in an overwhelmingly capitalist world. Even some of our best communist friends operating some little islands of capitalist centers, including China itself, which will be hosting the Communist Party of China will be having their conference shortly. So how do you navigate the Communist Party under these circumstances?
It's not much about the Communist Party, it's more about the economy, the social ownership of the economy. That's why our continued insistence on a strategic role of the state in economic matters becomes important in order to safeguard the interest of the majority, because the capitalist system largely represents a few owners who enjoys all the benefits, the work of others, appropriate the labor of others unto themselves. So it is much more about changing or responding to the changing nature of the workplace itself and of production, including the point that is raising about the fourth industrial revolution. Where we look at it is that when it is displacing the worker at the shop floor level, it should be able to bring in more equity for social well-being of the majority. That's how, from a class point, we want to look at the introduction of fourth industrial revolution as a key pillar or element of our economy. But largely, you still require, of course, workers at the workplace.
About 27% of women are saying, even though we're doing the same job as men, we are earning less.
Yeah, precisely the reason why we are launching this campaign, because that is a consequence of patriarchal social and production relations in society, where men have assumed this superiority complex over women. And we want to make it very clear, a man is not better than a woman. They are just better human beings equally, of same status and capacities, scientifically proven. Therefore, we must consciously deal with patriarchy, deal with sexism, deal with those who think that women abuse elevate their status in society as men. And we think that men have to take responsibility because we are the primarily the occupiers of the seat of the capitalist economic production. And therefore, we have to be conscious about what capitalism is doing to the world, such that if we continue in this form, society will turn upside down against men. And that's something that we may not necessarily it will not be good for society. That's why consciously we have to mobilize even the heads of industries to participate in creating equality between men and women at the point of production. And therefore, you will then erase this thing of unequal pay between men and women. And of course, also to deal with social labor, particularly unpaid work for women that women do every day in their households. And so that's a whole thing.
Wait, what are you saying?
Yes, because that's where women also do a lot of unpaid work in the household, which is not aggregated when we talk about contribution of labor in the broader scheme of economy. So social relations must also change in the households. And this is the discussion, the debate that we want society to embark on, because women abuse. You may find that you treat your woman nice and so forth, but in the household, you punish her with an ending job, house chores, which she does alone without the assistance of the men.
So are you saying that women must be paid for doing house chores?
We're simply saying that job that they do is currently unpaid.
Okay, let's go to Rustenburg. That is on. I attend that work. Bruh.
Over 5 minutes,
Oh, tshwarelo moruti wa ka. I don't know, tshwarelo moruti wa ka, tshware. Ao banna, ntate sono o ngadile na. Ao, ai papatwe moruti wa ka man. Skana pa adije marapo man ntate sono go Rustenburg. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, the number to dial is 0891104210. In fact, if our producers have Ntate Sono's numbers, please call him back. We don't want to lose Ntate Sono. He seems to have a view which he had wanted to express. 0891104210 is the number that you need to dial so that we can talk about this Red October month. So, what are the activities that are lined up this month?
Yeah, throughout the country. On the 11th of November, we will be launching officially the Red October campaign. Comrade Blade will lead a party delegation to Russia to go and celebrate right in Russia with all other communist and workers' parties about what happened. They will do that in Russia. When they come back the same weekend, we'll then have a mass rally in Durban, where we are mobilizing all South Africans, particularly from different communities, including, for instance, the gays, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, and intersex and albino communities to come and join us, because this campaign is to assert the rights of all South Africans as enshrined in our constitution.
Well, let's go to Durban. Mike, welcome.
Good afternoon, good evening. Do you know what? They don't know, the SACP does not know whether they're here nor there. They don't finish anything. Now they're jumping on this bandwagon. Basically, they just get publicity, but they have no teeth in anything. You know, the COSATU, the only reason they have some teeth is because of the power of the workers. But what does SACP have? You know, if they fight for anything, whether it's state capture, it's the statements. They have no power to do anything. They should show us maybe they have power to bring down Zuma, and then we'll have peace in the country. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Mike. Yes, so do you have the power to bring down President Zuma?
Well, the first thing is that we don't necessarily have to bring him down for nothing, but we have made the first call to call for him to step down, and we still stand by that particular call, and we've given reasons for why he should step down. Part of it is that he has donated our national independence to a group of his friends, particularly the Guptas, and he has made our constitutional democracy, he has put it almost in chaotic state, particularly because of patronage that he has and the influence he has inside the ANC, and we've called on the ANC to call him to order to rectify the situation.
But what are you doing?
But this is now a general issue of not only the SACP but of society, even the ANC itself. There are many other issues that, for instance, are of consequence. I was just telling you, when we started the campaign for public health through the National Health Insurance, when Comrade Mantom Chabalan Sumang was still the Minister of Health, no one thought that, for instance, we'll ultimately have the National Health Insurance in this country. We have it. Okay. So we deliver on most of our campaign's outcomes.
Today, does white monopoly capital or monopoly capital, whatever the color it may be, issues of state capture and all that, which are bothering not only the state, but are bothering the political alliance which the SACP is in. Talk to me about that.
No, of course, I mean, firstly, we are fighting against exploitation of all South Africans, whether it's from whatever kind of capital. But we're simply saying, as long as it is exploitative, is not wanted by us and is not wanted by society, and that we assume, and we think society agrees us with that. To the extent of how the movement has responded to that, the ANC has been quite clear as well in this case through its policy conference. We hope that decision can be affirmed by Congress,
yes,
so that we deal with capital as it is. And part of the problem is that how it has been problematized. It has been problematized to create an impression that every white person in South Africa is a capitalist, which is not necessarily the case. And therefore, that has a huge implications for social relations in South Africa. That is why that matter should also be handled proper. There's no doubt that a majority of top capitalists in this country are white people, given historical occupation of the country, appropriation of capital in the country, and that's understandable, that we know. But to characterize capital, because capital is essentially, it's money.
Yes.
Yeah, the money that you have in your pocket.
So what is going to happen if it's coming, because look, your friends, the Chinese, are all over the continent, and they are also penetrating South Africa. What's going to happen when it becomes Chinese? Is it going to be Sino monopoly capital?
No, you see, that's the point. If Chinese export capital to South Africa in a capitalist economy, it will be a capitalist economy, and they will treat it as such. So for us, it's not whether it's a Chinese capital or not. As long as it's exploitative, we are against it.
Andrew, you are in Nongoma. Welcome.
We are against it. Andrew, you are in Nongoma. Welcome. Yeah, yes, comrade. May I just congratulate Comrade Soli, South African Communist Party, the e-center from which the ANC and all other parties are drawing what is that is important about society. So I like South African Communist Party, and I just request that all other people who are opposed to the South African Communist Party must just shut up and don't phone this program and tell us that South African Communist Party is wrong there, is wrong there, is wrong there.
Okay, but Andrew, come on now. You can't say people must not call just because they don't like the Communist Party. There are people who don't like a lot of things here, but we do allow them to call. That's part of democracy. Now, the Chinese Communist parties will be holding their elective conference. We are not hearing all these noises that we normally hear with other communist parties, including the South African one.
Much less the South African one, were much different. But of course, they follow their own different procedures. You'll also notice that they've been in power since 1949 as a communist party, and they lead society. Unlike here, we lead society through vanguardism, through raising issues. Yeah. Like, for instance, the recall of President Zuma. It's no longer in our hands, it's in the hands of South African society. So they have a deeper system. For instance, the president there doesn't have the kind of powers that our president has. He doesn't, for instance, control the army in the first 2-3 years until he has been tested to be responsive to the constitution, to legality, to law. And that's when power is shifted to him. They have a council of elders that carry over power over a period of years when the new president comes in. And when they have satisfied that they've set up enough systems for the president that he can observe them, then they hand over the military as well to him. So that's one major difference.
Okay. So Mapela, thank you very much. And we wish you all the best with Red October month celebrations. Invite us to the main rally there.
Yeah, of course.
Who's the main speaker?
Of course, our General Secretary.
Who else?
From the ANC, they will give us a speaker.
Okay. Well, that was question time for today. A big thank you to my guest. Well, I don't think we have to be paid to guess who is likely to address the Communist Party in Durban later this month. But yeah, from me and the entire crew, you have yourself a wonderful time. My